What's going on, everybody? It is another episode of The Watch List. I'm Jayar Jackson. It is a Wednesday. It's beautiful out here. But you know, it's a different kind of Wednesday here at The Watch List. It's not just Wednesday, it's St. Louis Wednesday. It's Dreadhead Wednesday. It's Jackson and Jackson Wednesday. Jackson White joins me today. What's up, man?
Yes, indeed. Jackson and Jackson Wednesday. What's going on, Jayar?
What's going on? I want to make sure they know. Sorry, I jumped in on you there. Well, what was that?
I was just saying what's going on, Jayar, my fellow St. Louis brother.
Man, I love it. If y'all don't know, he's on TYT's Rebel headquarters, co-founder of the Politiscope app. That's where we ran into Jackson originally. One of the smartest guys I've run into when it comes to things like that. You developed that app, and I think it's wonderful. People should check that out as well. But they should also realize that you're the sexiest man on Twitter, apparently, is what I've heard. So
hey, I mean, I didn't say it, but I do say it. So I didn't say it, but I say it all the time. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie, but yeah, man, I'm definitely enjoying just being more and more of a TYT. Before I started working with you guys and before we linked up, I was a fan and just interested in how life goes. And you know, I'm loving it and look forward to just more opportunities and keep on giving y'all good work.
Absolutely, let's do it then. Because I want to start with the big story that's dominating every headline and the reaction that it's gotten. Let's start. As we're on the brink of what appears to be a major war with Russia, maybe other allies as well, everyone is responding about what we should do, what we could have done, what's going to happen, and exactly whether or not Donald Trump would have been better in this particular situation. One person that's definitely talking about that is Donald Trump. Let's watch. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on 1 second. Before we watch that, I want to get into one of the things he said, but let's get into the situation in Russia because this is what's ramped up to this point. Apologies, you guys. So there's a couple regions here that Putin has determined and has announced are separate from Ukraine, and he has this opportunity to then step in and do his thing. So these two regions are Luhansk and Donetsk, if I said those right. So President Vladimir Putin ordered troops into two Russia-backed separatist territories in Ukraine and hinted at the possibility of a wider military campaign and laid claim to all of Ukraine as a country, quote, created by Russia in an emotional and aggrieved address to the Russian people. Russian state television then showed Mr. Putin signing decrees late Monday recognizing the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics and directed the Russian Defense Ministry to deploy troops in those regions to carry out, quote, peacekeeping functions. Now, this is where the read then comes into whether or not these are peacekeeping functions or whether or not this is an invasion, a coordinated invasion, also because of all the moves they're making along the border. And everyone was just watching to see what would happen next. So now we've gotten to the point where people are starting to figure out which one of these folks would have done this the right way. And it's all based in US politics. So let's watch what Trump had to say on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show.
Today, and there was a television screen, and I said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. So Putin is now saying it's independent, a large section of Ukraine. I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. That's the strongest peace force. We could use that on our southern border. That's the strongest peace force I've ever seen. There were more army tanks than I've ever seen. They're going to keep peace all right. No, but think of it. Here's a guy who's very savvy. I know him very well, very, very well. But here's a guy that says, you know, I'm going to declare a big portion of Ukraine independent. He used the word independent. And we're going to go out and we're going to go in and we're going to help keep peace. You got to say that's pretty savvy. And you know what the response was from Biden? There was no response. They didn't have one for that. Now it's very sad.
So the discussion there was very much on brand for Trump, praising other world leaders and making sure that he points out how strong and savvy and genius. And this peacekeeping force is truly a peacekeeping force. More language that is against what many military leaders and also other leaders in America are saying about the situation. So once that came up, there has to be some defense for once people wonder, why is Donald Trump praising Vladimir Putin as he's doing these very risky and nefarious moves in other countries? So let's start with Pete Hegseth, how he twisted himself in knots to defend Trump in this language.
The Vladimir Putin lives rent-free in the minds of our media. of the American media. No organism, no entity has done more to spread Russian propaganda and to prop up the straw man that is Vladimir Putin than our very own media. And Donald Trump was happy to troll them on it, as he continues to do to this moment, because they can't resist it and they'll obsess over it. But when they know at the end of the day, when you look at the facts, you know, remember CNN like to talk about an apple as an apple? Right. If you look at the facts, the reality is, under the weakness of Obama and Biden, Vladimir Putin took advantage. And he saw a peer in Donald Trump who was unpredictable and willing to defend American interests, and he backed away from that.
All right.
All right, sure, whatever, yeah. Eric Bolling had his chance on Newsmax as well. Let's go to Eric Bolling, defending Trump here.
Let me just show you guys this handshake, and this one stuck out for me because this is a President Trump who is an alpha male when it comes to it. He grabs Putin and pulls him in. Now, Rick, I'm not a body language expert, but I will tell you, as man to man, when someone does that to me, this guy is trying to show dominance over me, and he clearly, Putin was the beta male in that room at that moment. Rick.
There was this one last instance where Donald Trump was the beta male in the room. First off, a handshake is the reason why that a total invasion in another country would have been prevented. Somehow we believe that. But either way, let's go back to this flashback from when Trump was actually the president and he did have an interaction with Vladimir Putin. And who was the beta male in this room?
And frankly, I'm going to let the president speak to the second part of your question. But just to say it one time again, and I say it all the time, there was no collusion. I didn't know the president. There was nobody to collude with. There was no collusion with the campaign. And every time you hear all of these, 12 and 14, it's stuff that has nothing to do. And frankly, they admit these are not people involved in the campaign. But to the average reader out there, they're saying, well, maybe that does. It doesn't. And even the people involved, some perhaps told mis-stories, although in one case the FBI said there was no lie. There was no lie. Somebody else said there was.
That was the Helsinki summit where he embarrassed himself in front of Vladimir Putin and continued to talk about how he believes Putin over American intelligence in every little situation. So when it comes to weakness, he already showed us that. But Jackson, this is where I think it becomes this linear one track mind when it comes to Americans, whatever side of the aisle it is. It's everything that's happening over there has to do with our elections, American presidents only. I feel like we need to realize how much separate this is.
Yeah, and I think that was a perfect segue because, Trump's relationship with Putin or any president's relationship with Putin doesn't have anything to do with Putin's will to restore Russia to its former glory or just Russia's will, the government itself to become the Soviet Union again as much as it can, because people really don't understand that from World War II up until the early 90s, much of, the Cold War, much of world conflict was literally between the United States and Russia's influence on the rest of the world. That's really what it was. And so Putin wants Ukraine. This has nothing to do with if Putin likes Donald Trump. And actually further on in this interview that didn't get played, Buck Sexton asked him what went wrong here. And Trump said, well, the election was rigged. That's what went wrong here.
Absolutely.
Again, of course, which of course is hilarious about the whole alpha male thing because, a strong man, a strong person takes the hard road when it's necessary. Trump still can't admit that he lost the election. Nothing he does is the hard road. So
it's the way he approaches all this stuff. Yeah, and you know what? And I think the pundits and the supportive politicians are seeing that, and they're like, we have to keep this thing going because anything Trump says, we have to continue to go with. Now, in any other instance, if Donald Trump was just another citizen who didn't just lose an election, they'd be like, oh, Donald Trump talking again. But they have to follow him now because now they've hitched their wagons to him, and there's the clownish defenses that all come with it. So we'll see where this goes, but I have a feeling that they're gonna go with it as long as he will, which is endless, and it's all about him. So you can beat that if you want. Let's move on to this next story because sometimes we don't know the details of how a breakdown of a settlement comes from police brutality. So let's check this one out. So in the summer of 2020, Mia Wright was attacked along with 4 other people in her car in Chicago by a gang of Chicago police officers. This is at the Brickyard Mall. And this is during the summer of racial injustice protests and some riots that broke out. Now, after they attacked her, what you'll see in this video, she's up to potentially receive about $1.7 million spread out amongst other folks from this particular thing. So let's watch what they did to Mia Wright.
It's an old ass woman. Stop, stop, stop. Wait, hold on.
So what was this all about? So this is in 2020, as I mentioned, the summer of 2020. Wright and family members said that they were trying to visit the Brickyard Mall in late May, but they said they arrived to discover that the northwest side of the mall was closed because of the civil unrest that occurred across the city in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd. Police officers suddenly surrounded the car, as you saw there, broke the windows and pulled Wright out of the vehicle. She was in the front passenger seat, by the way, by her hair. While Wright was thrown on the ground, an officer placed his knee on her neck, is what she said. And Wright was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct, though the charge was later dropped. So here's that moment again, because I zoomed in on as they snatched her out of the car and then dropped a knee on her neck and back. Let's watch that really fast.
Woman! Stop.
So there that was, because again, right after this unrest in the country over the way that Derek Chauvin did that to George Floyd, let's just do it again and just snatch people out of cars. Now, more background for this, because the officers had been staking out the mall on that day of looting across Chicago, and the 5 were targeted as suspects, the 5 folks in that car. Officers said that they thought some members of Wright's group were attempting to break into a store at the mall to steal goods from their car. And city lawyer Carolyn Franzak said, but the officers also acknowledged that nobody in the group matched the descriptions of the suspected looters. It's crazy how that works. And also, Wright claims that the violent actions by police on May 31st left her blind in her right eye, and it potentially ended her dream of becoming a paramedic. So that's part of this whole settlement. So first, let's get to what happened there, because that did happen a couple years ago. But then the settlement is what's really been the thing that's fired everyone up now recently. What's going on, Jackson? What do you think of this?
So yeah, in terms of the settlement, one of the excuses on why they don't want to pay the money out is because they think that it will become an excuse for people to sue police departments. Right. In other words, it'll be an excuse for people to believe they can hold us to account. And just looking at that video, the swarm of police around the car, they clearly can see that there's women in there. So from the beginning, it was completely unnecessary. The anger, the energy, and the violent intent behind it, they threw her onto the ground and then got on top. If you were really concerned about securing a situation and you could see in the car and there's all those police with you, maybe don't go to the car with but 1 or 2 police and say, ma'am, talk to them and see what they're doing, if anything. But, it's just this stuff happens, frequently, which is why the movements are going on around the country that are going on. But,
and these things happen so frequently. That's why these kinds of settlements keep coming out. And this is some because of what you mentioned from some of those aldermen that were discussing, because they went through the first wave of whether or not they're going to vote to approve this. So Alderman Raymond Lopez said in opposing the settlement that the city will be opening a Pandora's box by settling the lawsuit and would give everyone an excuse to start suing. Paying Wright and her relatives would open the door to many other lawsuits from people who, quote, were trying to loot, pillage, and destroy the city of Chicago during the Floyd protests, which sounds like this guy thinks that it was justified, does think they were there to loot and pillage and destroy the mall, and that they should have been snatched around. She should have been blinded in her right eye, and all that should have happened. So why would we be giving $1.7 million? It's gonna open the Pandora's box. We've already opened the Pandora's box with cops that think they can do this and get away with it over and over and over again, while taxpayers pay $1.7 million. More, there was another one that was against this. Alderman Nick Sposato, he wondered why Wright, who he said lived on the west side, North Lawndale neighborhood, drove to the Northwest Side Mall to shop on a day when Chicago was experiencing extensive, well-publicized public disturbances following the Floyd murder. Sposato's comments prompted Alderman Jason Irvin to ask, what's wrong with somebody who lives at Pulaski and Cernak coming to the Brickyard to shop? I think we know what that means, Jackson. That means they shouldn't have been in that damn neighborhood because those folks don't live here. They're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
It's the same narrative.
Yeah, pretty much. If they, just didn't go about their daily lives, then this wouldn't have happened to them, pretty much. So anything but accountability, anything but, and again, you look at it, no one with any type of moral compass would look at that video and be like, that was totally necessary. Like, come on, man.
Or then when you have to pay for it then afterwards. Again, everyone has been pulled over, as a black person, been pulled over in the wrong neighborhood because it happened to me in Beverly Hills, happened to me on the West Side, in St. Louis countless times. And it's, what are you doing here? Where are you going? First, that's before license and registration, by the way.
Yeah.
On to the next story, you guys, because Aaron Rodgers trying to rehab his image a little bit, I think here. Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he said he felt some remorse during this interview he had on his favorite podcast radio show because some of his loved ones were affected by his actions, his misinformation, some of his thoughts he had during the season about COVID. So let's see some of the regret that he voiced here. Let's watch.
I didn't realize in the midst of the COVID conversations how much my situation was affecting my loved ones and my people, because I was too locked in on me and defending myself and trying to get a message out. I never wanted to be divisive in this whole thing. I really didn't. My intention was never to be divisive. It was to speak what was my truth and talk about, my own health. But I am very sorry to those people, Shay and my loved ones and my agents and my teammates and the organization, my sponsors.
So as all those things he wants to rehab and get back going, as he was doing all these things that we're about to watch, he now realizes how it affected others. Let's watch what he was up to.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. There's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys. I felt good in just a few days and didn't have any lingering effects other than the COVID toe. On this camera, let me see if I can. Oh, there's no lesions whatsoever. No, that's actually called disinformation, when you perpetuate false information about an individual. I have a fractured toe, so I expect a full apology from Molly Knight and whoever her editors was. I did get a kick out of reading that article. That was very, very interesting. But no, I never heard of COVID toe before.
Not only on that show, but also through Instagram. Rodgers also took to it and said, gratitude is the wine for the soul. Go on, get drunk. I'm expecting that to be like by anonymous. Anytime you post something random with a nice cloud background, it's anonymous. So also in the post, he also had some gratitude for people in his life, specifically, as you guys mentioned, his ex-fiancee, Shailene Woodley. And there's an image he posted there and how happy they were. And he wrote a heartfelt dedication to her, I guess trying to recoup what happened there. He said, thanks for letting me chase after you the first couple months after we met, and finally letting me catch up to you and be part of your life. Thanks for always having my back, for the incredible kindness you show me and everyone you meet, and for showing me what unconditional love looks like. I love you, and I'm grateful for you. So the question now becomes, Jackson, is this gonna work? Because I think it will. I'm not sure if it's gonna work as far as with Shailene, but if you're gonna have a back and forth with your ex-fiance, the thing that sticks out to me is, why is that to be public? Like, say that to her, right?
Well, yeah, he's in terms of that, he's going about it all wrong. One, he's making it public, which is embarrassing. And anybody who knows anything about relationships, and especially women, know is when a woman needs space, you gotta give it to her. You can't try to convince her to make her feel a certain way. You just gotta let her go. And if she wanna come back, she will, and maybe she won't. So that's how Aaron Rodgers gotta go about this. But I think another thing about Aaron Rodgers, and anybody facing something like this, for him to say, I had no idea like the effects of my actions and what was. If you don't have any idea of the collateral damage of your actions, it's just a reflection that you're not self-aware and that you're not cognizant of other people. That's cool if you're 15 or 16 maybe, and you're just totally, you're young, you haven't had much experience. But that, again, that's just emotional immaturity, which unfortunately many adults never really grow up emotionally. So I think he's just one of them.
Yeah, and the atmosphere allows it. I always said this, people take to the internet, they take to Facebook or wherever it is and find their circles of people that will support whatever they say, no matter what it is that they say. And yeah, you can say that about many folks across all of social media, but that's where you go and find yourself. And then I think once the whole drama ended, he's kind of awakened to me like, wait a second, I think I'm screwing myself over here. Let me try to rehab my career, or at least my image, not necessarily career, because as far as the football world, he's gonna be fine. He's gonna do that.
Oh, yeah. As long as he can keep on throwing the football, then he'll be good.
Which he's done just fine. And that's gonna be the main driver for his image to be rehabbed, because people will get over it, especially once we get past COVID to a degree.
All he's gotta do is be quiet and people will forget.
We'll get there. Let's take our first break, you guys. I wanna hear from what you guys had to say from these first few stories. And also when we come back, I do wanna get into one of my favorite stories of the day. There is a congressional candidate who found herself in a very bad situation, but she's staying in the race. I love it. We'll do that when we come back.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad, and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Back on the watch list with Jackson and Jackson. Yes, we're still here. Yes, we're still gonna keep giving it to you. From Twitch, I wanna hear from what you guys had to say. Kaladin says if Putin wanted to annex Alaska, Trump would say it was closer to him than us, so he can have it. Probably, most likely. Also, Meriduff 911 also on Twitch says, I would love to meet all the TYT men and take a picture with them, all of them at once.
We'd love to take a picture with you as well.
There's a Wendy's girl at the end of it. I love that. I'm not sure what it means, but I like it. And also from Twitch, Socrates Bartender says, people wouldn't sue you if you stopped violating their civil rights. 100%. That's with the Chicago cop story and Mia Wright and her being blinded in one eye. Everyone that's watching, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word as Watch This continues to go. We are in our 5th week of our 10-week test run. Please let everyone know what's going on. Subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe because we like having you guys around. Let's go to this next story.
A branch of the nation's largest childcare company is under police investigation.
Honey, I'm coming, okay?
After a parent's horrifying discovery, Stephanie Martinez found her 2-year-old daughter locked inside the South Florida Kindercare Center alone. She frantically called 911.
She's inside the daycare. She just came up to the door.
She's inside by herself?
Yeah, she's crying. She's inside by herself.
How's your daughter doing?
She is definitely traumatized. Night times are not, she's avoiding trying to go to sleep.
A police report says 2 daycare employees checked around inside before locking up and leaving at 6:20. 8 minutes later, Martinez arrived.
Because I don't get off of work till like 5:30. I do have to pick up my son first. So they always did the favor for me of, and staying there a little bit later.
Oh, the little face in the window. No, that broke my heart. So Stephanie Martinez is the mom there, as you guys heard, talking about the situation that happened down in Plantation, Florida, where her daughter was locked in the Kindercare and she showed up a little bit late and no one was there to greet her. So more details on this from the Independent. She was able to push a chair up to the door and call my name. Man, and that was the only reason I was able to see her, is what Martinez said, adding that the toddler was, quote, super traumatized. Firefighters had to arrive up on the scene and they were able to pry the doors open, which is what I was thinking. I'm like, man, you got to find something to break those windows open because that's your kid, and whatever repercussions or consequences come from broken glass is just gonna have to be dealt with later. Now, there was an official statement from the Kindercare that said this after that scenario. We take all concerns about children's safety seriously and follow a specific protocol anytime an issue is raised. Part of that protocol includes notifying our agency partners like state licensing and child protective services, as we did in this case. We also placed the staff members involved on administrative leave while we and our agency partners look into the concern further. Man, they mentioned agency partners a few times there. That's very important. Also, the daycare said it's gonna provide further training. I'm not sure what else you can train as far as not forgetting a kid is there. But for Martinez, that's not enough because she does want to sue. So nobody should ever have to go through this, is what she said. You pay for trust and they completely voided that. I have no words, I'm still in shock right now. And her attorney said on Friday that the entire event could have been avoided if Kindercare did not abandon their responsibilities and that toddler. I know you don't have any kids, Jackson, but this struck me right in my heart because I did have a kid in preschool. None of this ever happened, but I heard stories sometimes when things would get really bad. And I'm really not sure, either the kid was in the bathroom, kid was playing hide and seek, or the people just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems either way, this is something that shouldn't have happened. And, if it was I don't have kids, so I can't say exactly what I would do. But, this, whether it be something like this or things that happen when you're very young can shape how you see the world and your different beliefs. And this may not have been that type of traumatic, but she may be, afraid of the dark and have different types of fears more enhanced than she would have if this didn't happen. So it's unfortunate, but I really personally, don't see how someone could have walked out of that classroom and they got left unless she was hiding, or what do you think?
And then thing is, if there's a regularity thing where this woman comes later, it should be part of your protocol. I do think the kid's gonna eventually forget about it. She's too young. But this is something that's gonna scar their parents, her mom. You're never gonna forget that. And she's gonna win this settlement. Let's keep it real. Let's go to my favorite story of the day because it's fabulous.
I'm up every day at 5 a.m. It's not easy, but hard work is just in my DNA. Growing up in Bethany, nothing was ever handed to me. When I was their age, I was watching Katie Couric. I knew that I wanted to be a journalist because behind every headline, there's a family story that deserves to be told. Jim Inhofe's been in DC since I was in kindergarten. He's been in office since LBJ was president, 25 years in the Senate. He's not looking out for us. He's never been held accountable for the chaos he's created, never had to run on his record, and hasn't had a strong challenger in over a decade. And he has never run against a strong, independent woman like me.
Yeah, that's Abby Broyles, and she is in the middle of a bit of a controversy here, based off of this one particular incident that happened with some kids. So a US House candidate in Oklahoma, she's apologized after reports that she became intoxicated at a Valentine's Day weekend sleepover for middle school aged girls, berated several of the children, and vomited in a hamper. Yes, that is the overall arching, but there's details that you have to hear. So according to multiple details of this evening, Broyles in that campaign ad there became intoxicated and spoke derogatorily to some of the girls. She allegedly called one girl an acne effer, and also which prompted the girl to leave the room in tears. Broyles allegedly called another girl a Hispanic effer and another a judgy one as well. Man, she's throwing the F word around like crazy to these kids. So also according to one of the parents of the 12-year-old, the judgy effer, her daughter was called that for not wanting to sleep with a blanket that Broyles had used to clean up some wine. Yes, there was wine. So here's some tweets from some of the one mom that was particularly upset about this. Sarah Matthews said, since it's been 5 days and you have neglected to reach out to any of the young ladies, 12 and 13-year-olds, you verbally and emotionally abused last weekend, I thought I would give you a chance to try to apologize at a minimum here. For someone who pontificates to be an underlyingly pro-woman, I'm disgusted by your behavior and I find it appalling. You couldn't even understand why their parents are angry. Your vile, cruel, and bigoted behavior should not be excused or quote swept under the rug. Oh, she's not done. Not only did you scare and traumatize these beautiful girls with your words, you ruined a pair of their shoes with your vomit. I apologize for laughing. Which she saved up to buy with her own money. Considering how much you bragged about how rich and successful you are to these children, surely you can afford to replace her shoes. Now there's more, Jackson, but let's get your first response to what happened here. She got sick, she vomited. There's more reasons behind that and there's more excuses. But first, how do you find yourself in this situation in the first place?
Exactly, I can't, I do a good job at trying to put myself in people's shoes, and I just couldn't feel those shoes. I couldn't put my feet in those boots today because under no circumstance could I see myself doing that. You're in your 30s, you're running for a national seat. And you're right about Jim Inhofe, he does need to go. But again, given that mixture, you being an adult and running for a US seat, you go to a house full of middle schoolers, which I don't why are you doing that in the first place? Then you drink wine and you say, she said it didn't show, but she said she had these sleep issues throughout her life.
Yeah.
So you should know about taking medication and mixing it with wine. So again, under no circumstances does this make sense. So my ultimate reaction is, just I don't even really have a good one to give other than how did this happen?
Well, Abby's initial reaction was, what are you talking about? Let's go to that. She said, I saw the tweets. I've been out of town on a fundraising trip and they are awful and offensive and false. I mean, I get trolled on Twitter all the time, but I don't know these women and I don't know what is behind this, but it's just not true. Asked if she had ever gone to the house where the slumber party occurred, Broyle said no. Also, she said, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, this is ridiculous that this is even becoming a thing. This didn't happen. Also, I'm running for office. You don't think this is a political attack? Man, you don't think this is something they cooked up? Man, Abby's digging in deep. So finally, she did admit later on, she was at the party. So all those words about no and political attacks, I can't believe they do this to me. All that stuff is now out the window. But also, yeah, okay, yeah. I said a couple things to some 12 and 13-year-old girls. Let's go to that here. As she spoke with her she's also was formerly in the news, as you guys saw, but her former colleague there, Kevin Ogle, talked to her. Said, Abby, how did you wind up at a slumber party for middle-aged school girls? That's not a typical venue for a candidate who's running for Congress. And Abby said, I was invited by one of my great friends, Cassidy, my friend from law school, to her house to be there while she was hosting a Valentine's Day sleepover for her daughter. That makes some sense to me. You have a little company, you want an adult in the room with you, so you don't have to listen to these girls all night. Kevin then said, that's not the Abby Broyles I worked for on Channel 4. What happened? She asked me to come over, is what she said. She asked me to bring some wine. We had wine and sushi, and a couple of hours later, we were upstairs in their theater room watching a movie. Then she gets into what happened. Well, why, she says what happened. For years, I've struggled with stress and anxiety and insomnia, and she knows that. Her friend, she knows that. And she gave me a medication I had never taken before, and I had an adverse reaction. Instead of helping me sleep, I hallucinated, and I don't remember anything until I woke up or came to, and I was throwing up in a hamper. Whew. Man, okay, so this is the other thing. And I know you mentioned this a little bit before, Jackson, but first you find yourself in this situation. Number two, you say I was never there. Then you say my good friend knew that I had these issues with sleeping. And then she gave me this random pill. And I guess maybe while she was taking a sip of wine, the friend dropped it in. How did you take it then? Because I've had friends offer me pills I've never had before. You know what I say? Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Right, exactly. And first, you had to, well, let me say this. After a certain point, especially if you're someone who does partake in substances, you start to learn your limits. So again, that's another angle from this. It's like you're drinking, how much wine did you drink? Did you drink the whole bottle? You know what I'm saying? For you to just like, just puking in shoes and trash cans and calling girls everything under the sun effort. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just like, it's a terrible excuse from every angle. This isn't the first time you've drunk. This isn't the first time you've taken pills for sleeping. And I'm sure it's not the first time you've done other types of recreational drugs. So I still fail to find any sympathy for her.
Lastly, there's tons of stress. I know you're running for office, but let's jump down to graphic 14, you guys, because I want you guys to remember her first denials and then her admissions and then this apology. Let's check this out from Twitter. The things I'm accused of saying are not who I am, nor do they depict the entirety of the situation that occurred. They are not a reflection of my beliefs. This has been a painful attack on my character, from the accusations themselves to the overwhelming amount of politically charged threats, malicious emails, calls, and messages I've received. Like all of us, I'm not perfect. We all make mistakes. And I'm sure I'm not the only Oklahoman who's ever done that. Had one too many on a Friday night. Being in the public eye for an intense 3 years in a tumultuous political climate has been the most stressful time of my life. While I'm committed to service, I'm taking some time to focus on my mental health and recharging so I can feel 100% better again. And the thing you might expect it in that is, therefore, I'm suspending my campaign because there's no way I can possibly win this and all that the story comes out. But you'd be wrong if you said that, Jackson, because she's staying in the race.
She's not gonna give up. She's taking the leadership route. You know what I'm saying? She's moving forward. She's trying to be inspiring. She's doing the best she can.
Yo, at this point, I'm okay with it. Stay in the race. What's the worst that could happen? You
right, why not? Yeah, you ain't gonna win anyway. You might even get some notoriety out of it because I think this isn't something that will really make the general public really despise you. It's just a funny story, kind of, and again, because I'm not the only person who just happens to get wasted at a bunch of middle schoolers' houses and throw up in their shoes.
She's gonna find her voting block for sure. If Trump can find his, she can find hers.
That's true.
Let's take this next break real quick, you guys. After a couple minutes, I'm gonna come back and see what you guys have to say, hopefully about this story, because it was my favorite. And then after that, we're gonna wrap up the rest of the hour. We do have, there's a creepy state senator over in Nebraska who's been busted for doing creepy things. We'll do that when we come back.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody.
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care. You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
Jackson on the watch list. So you guys go. Let's go really fast to Twitch because I thought this was funny. From John's Venn diagram of desire, all one word. Did y'all see Jackson's most recent Instagram post? Question mark, exclamation point, thirst trap.
Hey, I'm guilty, man. I'm guilty.
And lastly, YouTube super chat. Thank you guys very much, by the way, for the super chats out there. Katrinoya says, I mean, this is on Abby Broyles. I took Ambien briefly until I realized I was having whole conversations I didn't remember. So it's possible if she hadn't lied first. True. We still don't know what that pill was. But let's move on though, because this is I think an important story. There's now a former state senator in Nebraska. His name is Mike Graney, and he stepped down this week after he had been busted after he was discovered to be taking pictures of a female staff, a staffer of his, in the office with particular close-ups and captions with some of these pictures he had. Now, this is just the latest instance of some sexual harassment that appears to be the norm in the state house there in Nebraska. And other women that are in elected official positions have decided to start speaking up. So let's start with the situation with Graney here before we get to what they said they've experienced as well. So Graney, he's a blunt and often abrasive Republican lawmaker. He acknowledged Friday that he took photos of the legislative staffer in his office, but he said none of the images were sexual in nature, and that he also snapped pictures of other staffers and office visitors, including his wife. So I guess that makes it okay. The former staffer, her name is Christina Konecko. She filed a complaint with the legislature's executive board in which she described the photos as objectifying and demeaning. She said some included zoomed in close-ups of provocative body parts with explicit subject lines. It's an allegation that Graney has denied. Now, this is his response after he decided to step down because he had been busted. I'm done. I really don't care. I don't care about politics anymore. I've got bigger fish to fry. Well, I can see now why you don't care about politics, because you've been busted. Also, he added that he thought the photos were harmless and non-sexual in nature, and stated of the aide, she's a very modest person, and I guess she was offended. So again, still zero accountability, zero remorse. Just, I took these pictures. Yeah, I took pictures of my wife and other folks too, but I guess she's just so modest. She doesn't want random creepos taking pictures of their body parts and saving them. Okay. So also there's other female lawmakers that are calling for more accountability because this, as I mentioned, is apparently the norm there. State Senator, let's jump down to this. State Senator Wendy DeBoer, she broke down exactly how when things like this happen in professional settings, how women then who have been harassed and sometimes assaulted have to rethink their entire approach to just life. Let's watch what she had to say.
When something like this happens to you, if you haven't had something like this happen to you, you may not understand the gravity of the situation. And what happens is that your basic trust level of the world is disrupted. Then you start to go through in all your other interactions and you do risk assessments. Can I stand this way? Is it okay if I wear this color? And when you're busy doing those risk assessments about every little thing, you're not doing the other things you could be doing with your life, forwarding your career, getting better at what you're doing. So there's an outsized effect when someone you trust breaks your trust. And you're having to do the work through no fault of your own, through nothing you did, of having to rebuild that trust that you can, in my case, take a cab again. That the next cab driver won't attack you. Or your next boss won't.
It's an entire different approach to life. It's things you have to think about that us as most guys just don't have to think about, especially since we, I guess on a far lesser scale, have to deal with this type of harassment and assault. So if you just think about it and put yourself in those other positions and other situations, you might have a reason to not do this type of stuff. But in case you're not convinced yet, also Senator Julie Slama, she talked about things she's experienced and why she doesn't like to talk about them. Let's watch.
Early on, when I got into politics at age 22 in Nebraska, I was groped at a political event by someone who is not a member of this body and not a current or former office holder. I buried it because I'd gone through a worse trauma in college and tried to minimize it, just as I tried to minimize it when I've been touched inappropriately on this floor and in committee by members of this body. And most of you were on the floor when a member who, on the mic, talked about raping me on the floor of the legislature. That doesn't even get to the rape threats, the death threats, and sexual comments directed towards me on social media. Our policies definitely don't protect staff, and they definitely don't protect female senators. You know, I don't talk about it that often, and at most times I really don't come forward when it happens. Senator DeBoer got to this point pretty well. It's because as a young female, you worry that it's going to be the thing that defines.
So that's the thing, you just don't talk about it, Jackson. And then guys go through this and they get busted, and then someone like this state senator says, I'm through with politics. I guess she's just too modest.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, this is something that most men don't realize that women have to deal with, because it's something most men don't have to deal with. Little things like women can't walk down the streets by themselves at night the same way that we can. Women have to be careful what types of men they get involved with, because men are much bigger and stronger than them typically. And if a man's emotionally out of control or he's insecure, he can be of a great danger to her. And then within the workplace, married men, men who are engaged, men who are involved, routinely pit women in the difficult situations to where they feel like they can't tell, because really these are just intrinsically small men who are insecure with their existence in the world. And so whether it be women or just lesser employees, or really anybody that they feel they can get away with domineering in some type of way, but especially women, they take that because it makes them feel up. It makes them feel like they have power that they don't actually have. And unfortunately for women, the most dangerous thing in the world for a woman is a man. So, this is just a really good viewpoint into things that women deal with every day.
And if you actually stop and listen to anyone else outside of your own circles, that's where diversity comes in. When it comes to gender, race, background, region, country, wherever, you get to learn something more about someone that isn't like you. And if you actually stop and listen, then you'll have a chance to maybe better yourself. If nothing else, just to better yourself. Hopefully we'll get there. The women in this particular state house are still trying to fight for it. And they talk about how they're still back in the 70s when it comes to the responses to this. It's just, that's how he is, move on. It's sad. Let's move on to the next story because I do want to talk about it with you. Because Candace Owens has some things to say about what's going on in Russia, or is it Canada? Candace Owens is pushing more of her foreign policy expertise on everyone. She definitely wants to concentrate on Canada though, because it's looking a little bit too much like Hitler's Germany right now. Let's watch what she had to say.
Right, that they're not allowing some of these people, the main leaders, out of prison. And they're really trumped up charges that really mean absolutely nothing except you've messed with the state and now you're going to face the consequences. Something that you might see, by the way, under the reign of somebody like, I don't know, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin. All of these things that they keep calling us is exactly what they're guilty of.
Come on, man. I don't believe that she believes that. She's on TV and she has to say it. Anyway, so not only that, but also she wants to invade Canada, apparently. It's weird. So she tweeted this out, stop talking about Russia. Send American troops to Canada to deal with the tyrannical reign of Justin Trudeau Castro. He has fundamentally declared himself dictator and is waging war on innocent Canadian protesters and those who have supported them financially. So this isn't the first time she's pushed things like let's invade each other and let's make sure that these two countries have issues and oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this to us. Remember she said this in October of last year about Australia. Looking into what is happening in Australia, and I can now confidently say that World War III is upon us. I'm still waiting for it. We are in the midst of a global psychological warfare. Under the guise of COVID-19, governments worldwide have declared war on their people for full totalitarian control. Crazy, crazy. Now, in reality, back up to Canada, because they're under this regime of this dictator, Castro, Trudeau. Let's look at the numbers of people who oppose the things that are going on with the truckers. It's total opposed to 62% versus the total in support of it, 32%. They are really under the thumb. Now, there's always people that have an issue with what your leaders are doing, and there's ways around it. But as far as just saying, let's stop talking about Russia altogether. It's all Canada. This is where she's thinking, man, I still have some money to make on this whole Canada trucker thing. That's where I see it coming, actually, Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. It's I got some more money to make. I got some more views to get. And that's all this is about. Because of course, let's not worry about Russia. Let's not worry about the actual potential, World War III situation. Let's not, try to calm that down. Let's send troops into Canada and, shoot stuff up and occupy space because truckers don't want to get vaccinated. Like, it's just, Candace Owens is a very empty human being. She's been at this for quite some time. She hasn't changed course, and eventually it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not convinced necessarily that she's going to totally crash and burn, but eventually some other, Sambo type of person is going to replace her and will do what they do. And she's just an empty vessel to me.
But okay. So this thing, she has to eventually adopt the next talking point or the next line of attack, or at least some way to continue to get some kind of a career out of this. Yeah. So I wonder, like, you just have to kind of wait for the next thing. And I guess Russia isn't it, Canada's still it. I just wonder how much, you wonder how long it can last.
The midterms, 2024, she's got some decent amount of time left for sure. And just at the rate that everything's going, she may have a long, illustrious career, so.
Yeah, we do know. They did point this out to me because our producers put this together also that Tucker Carlson. This is a good illustration of exactly how it is because Tucker Carlson, of course, is pushing things with the truckers, and then so this is a T-shirt that he's also pushing. I heart truckers, but it's actually Tucker with an R in it because people wear those shirts around. And again, if you don't see it, if they're making all their political points, very important things about America, comparisons of like Hitler and Nazi Germany and these dictators, and they're listening to President Biden and all this constantly over and over again, you have to realize then when they say, now buy this shirt that says all those things that I just told you is super important, it might not be that important to them. The money that you're giving them might be the most important thing that's happening here. That's really the problem.
It's just entertainment, man.
Yeah, and they said that, I say it every time. Fox News said it in a lawsuit when they were getting sued. Anyone who believes the Tucker Carlson show is anything but simple entertainment is crazy.
Yeah, they really used that in court. They really used that in court.
And got away with it because the judge said, you're right. That's nonsense. Up next is the damage report, you guys, because this is the end of the show. Look, oh man, it goes by so fast. We have to have back on Jackson because
I had a great time. We got to do Jackson and Jackson again, the two St. Louis brothers, the two dreadheads. You know what I'm saying?
We'll see what the people say. We're going to make sure they understand that this is the way it's just going to have to be. But coming up next is the damage report. I did tell John that I'm gonna let everyone know that Ravana is gonna be on today. You can watch that at twitch.tv/TYT or youtube.com/The Damage Report to check him out, listen to what they have to say. It's another beautiful Wednesday, you guys. And until tomorrow, I'll still be watching.